Hello and welcome to Reviews. Man, I am so far behind. I still have like The Life of Captain Marvel and The Return of Wolverine from last week. I still have not even read. Um, I went back and I've got a few books. I'm a couple months behind on some of my stuff, and I just saw that. I thought it was a little smudge on the cover there. Um, so I'm trying to get caught up. I was going to take a look at this last night, but yesterday was really crap. I ended up having to go back into work for a few hours. Didn't get back home till about 1:30 in the morning. So you don't want to hear all that. You just want to know why there's a moth on the Green Lantern. So I figured I'd take a look at the Doomsday Clock to try and wash some of the heroes in crisis out of the taste of that out of my mouth. And it's funny to read these two books back to back. Um, Whereas there's a little bit of hope. This book is about saving the world, and Heroes in Crisis is about crap falling apart. Um, it's Read the two books back to back. There's a little bit of mood whiplash between the two of them. So take a look. I like this cover. I like green. I like the Green Lantern, and Doomsday Clock. I have enjoyed it. I imagine this is one of those books that is going to read really well when put all together. Um, in trade paperback form. And once this is done, I'm going to go back and read it all back to back like that. Um, because we've the past few issues we've been getting insights into some of the characters and that, and here we're starting to really see the plot ramp up. So um, let's take a look in. And this is actually going to be kind of hard to review because they're keeping with the Gibbons 9-panel setup, like Watchmen did. So, but the opening is really neat because, as you see with the blue captions, this is John, Dr. Manhattan, talking. And he's kind of bouncing around a little bit in time, as he does if you've read Watchmen. And basically, it starts off with talking about how Alan Scott became the Green Lantern. He was in a train crash, um, reached for the lantern that supposedly saved him, and Dr. Manhattan says something really interesting here. He talks a little bit about the history, but then he says, "It's July 16th, 1940. A young engineer named Alan Scott is riding a train over a bridge when it collapses. When you read the third panel, you figure it's going to be a repeat of the first. He miraculously survives by clutching onto a Green Lantern. But John says, I moved the lantern 6 inches out of his reach. Alan Scott dies when the bridge falls. He leaves behind no family." This panel right here is really, 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 really important. It's really cool. Um, That's a quick little history here. Um, Before the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, there were two Earths: Earth 1, Earth 2. Earth 1 had Justice League, Earth 2 had Justice Society. Um, After the Crisis, they put it into one Earth where the Justice Society of America came first, and then the Justice League came later. They existed on one Earth, but then after Flashpoint, they separated them out. There was never a Justice Society. Justice League was the original. So what happened to the people from the JSA? Um, as we have seen, there seems to be creeping back in, with Rebirth and everything. But what happened to some of the people from the JSA? Alan Scott died. He never became the original Green Lantern of the 40s and 50s. Um, this is really important. This is really cool. While Jake Garrick, as we've seen in Flash, he's sucked into the Speed Force. He's trapped in there. We see that Dr. Manhattan made sure that Alan Scott did not live, that he died, that there was never a Green Lantern. So we have a little bit more of the tale of how the Green Lantern came to be. Um, it would flare once for death, once for life, 3 times for power. Um, so anyway, we cut back over, and we have Rorschach and Saturn Girl and Johnny Thunder. We just blanked out his name for a minute. still trying to find his Thunderbolt. He has the Green Lantern, and he tries to shout out his catchphrase to summon the Thunderbolt. Say you, and it's still not working. So where is his Thunderbolt? That's his genie. That's really interesting. I've never cared for the character before, even the version that they did in JSA, the Jeff Johns, the newer one. And so I'm actually really kind of getting tied up into his story. So Adrian comes and picks up Rorschach and the other two. We get a little bit of political for, intrigue over here. The Superman theory, what's going on. I don't know where they're going with all this. It almost seems a little bit like it's trying too hard to be like the original Watchmen, where there's the ramifications. Ooh, my cat clawed me. The ramifications of the superheroes in the world. I'm not quite sure we need that. Sometimes I'm not sure if this is an Elseworlds. I know it's not supposed to be. But the whole Superman theory, the metahumans being created, it's that subplot that's been going on with that, the kind of world building, I think kind of needs to be cut, especially if this is in main continuity, because it kind of seems to go against some things. So again, we cut back over. We're in the Owl ship. When it showed up, we weren't sure if Adrian was in it, but he is. And they're talking about the end of the world. Adrian gets to meet Johnny and Saturn Girl. And of course, when she claims that she's a telepath from the 30th century, there's a funny bit here. Didn't mention that last part when we met. Where did you find her? Arkham Asylum. Should I do a deep voice for Rorschach? I feel like I should drop my voice down and do something kind of growly like that. Yeah, found him in Arkham Asylum. Of course you did. So we see the news reports, even with the Superman theory going on, which is talking about how I'm not even going to go into it. It's kind of a conspiracy theory, but Superman is still basically allowed to cross borders because he is still seen as good. He's being played as an image of hope. So while this is going on, we have Adrian. His brain cancer. He's starting to have more pain. Pain's lasting longer. He thinks he doesn't have much time left, maybe none at all. And so then we have Bubastis here. And Bubastis is looking up, and what the hell? Even Rorschach says, "What's Cat doing?" We're getting close. You said Cat was Compass. I don't know if I want to do that. I gotta find a voice for that. So yeah. I'm going to just go ahead because as Adrian is talking, I'm trying to do this really fast because I'm already 8 minutes in. As they're doing their search for Dr. Manhattan, Adrian points out that she's from the future, he's from the past. Hero from the future, hero from the past happen to be put together in one place. When it comes to Dr. Manhattan, there are no coincidences. We cut back over to the Joker's, what's he call it, his lair, his funhouse, the Joker cave. He has captured the comedian, but he's captured the comedian and Batman, and he's got the marionette and mime with him. And so they decide that they're going to have some fun and start torturing the comedian. Joker is repulsed by the PDA that mime and marionette have. So they're wondering how the comedian is alive, which is interesting because I wasn't quite sure if they were going to do this whole thing where John changed the time stream so that the comedian never died. But the way this goes, they're aware that he was dead. You died in the past, yet here you are, you have an age of day, tell us your secrets. So we do know that the comedian is back from the dead. He wasn't saved at the last minute. He was what happened in The Watchmen, the investigation of his death, that all happened. So during all this, Batman escapes. And we go into a fight between Batman and Mime and the marionette. And when Mime does his little miming his invisible gun and shoots Batman's cape, even Joker has to say, "I didn't see that coming." The Joker's actually kind of funny. I like the way Johns has been doing the Joker in this. So, cut back over to Bubastis with his eyes glowing because she is actually the compass to find Dr. Manhattan. We'll explain more about that shortly. And a little bit of filler here. When Adrian takes the lantern, I'm not sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure at first if this was like symbolic, but yeah, since his face is reflecting, it starts glowing when he hands it, and when Johnny hands it over to Adrian, and he smiles. We cut back to the fight, and it's kind of going both ways. Marinette does her little piano wire thing and actually cuts through Batman's wrist spike things, whatever you call them, and into his arm. Almost gets him, and then Joker breaks him up with a flamethrower. They went with a dick joke in here, like the dude from Dead Rising 3. Got the flamethrower between his legs, and even Joker's like, he points out the fact this is kind of dumb. Oh, come on, somebody laugh. No time for laughing. And it's Rorschach, and Joker says, don't sneak up on a man like that, Bogart. And Batman admits, I was wrong about you, Rorschach. Hey, when you get Batman to admit he's wrong, you've done something good. So now we're getting the characters together. We get the Marionette and the Mime back with Adrian. We got the comedian showing up, and we find out that John had sent the comedian to get Adrian's cat, and Adrian wants to know what's so special about it. And the cat starts glowing more and more. What's wrong with it? Nothing. She's working perfectly. And so he has Bubastis sniff the Green Lantern, which I don't know why he had to go in there. Maybe because he had to be close to the comedian, because he had Bubastis and the lantern back on the owl ship. So he's actually using the energy, getting the energy, because John interacted with it. And since Bubastis the cat is partially infused with John, gets the energy, and he says that, as he's calling for John, I can make this hurt more than it does. Not quite sure what he's doing with Bubastis there, he's just holding her up, but yeah, he can use the energy to summon John. And then we get naked John. I'm going to skip the next page. I'll skip a little bit, not just for copyright, but I'm trying to not show blue dong on my YouTube channel. So I'll kind of flip over and we kind of pull it out of view here. Adrian says, he wants to talk to John. So John teleports all of them except for Joker and Batman away and says, let's talk. Adrian asks John to come back and save their world. And John says, no, he won't. He's in the middle of something. And John starts doing his talk about, his time displacement type thing where he sees all time at once. And, we find that Adrian did go to Lori, but she refused. That's why they went with the Mime and Marionette. And we go back to earlier in the series where we see when John, when we saw that John was stopping the bank robbery, and that we find out that the Marionette is pregnant. And he tells her, I did not spare you because you were pregnant. I saw what your child would do, and I chose to save him. And as you know, the Marionette is looking for her kid. What are you talking about? What did my child do? Which child? What do you mean, which child? Yes, sometimes I forget what's been and what will be. You're pregnant again. What? The goofy look on the mime's face. And then, of course, they start making out more. Say what you will about these two. They are, they're crazy, but they're in love. That's a nice little, I guess you say, difference between, Harley and the Joker when they did their relationship. Joker never seemed to really be that into Harley. She was all over him. These two they can't keep their paws off of each other. It's actually kind of endearing. I hate to say it. So Comedian's still tied up, and you know, Rorschach goes up to John, trying to get Doctor Manhattan to help. Adrian's not the same guy. Um, Rorschach wanted to kill him, but found him, and that Adrian was dying from cancer and is just trying to redeem himself, which actually gets a shocked look from Doctor Manhattan. Adrian does not have cancer. Look again, he's sick. Found out that those X-rays must have been faked because Adrian even admits, "I don't have cancer. I never did." And Adrian once again goes back to his whole kind of scumbag, ends justify the means, that he totally manipulated Rorschach because he needed his help. So um, he, since he knew everything about Reggie, the current Rorschach, that he would manipulate him into thinking that he was filled with regret and remorse, was looking to save the world and needed to seem like he had cancer to really play into Rorschach's hero need or whatever. And of course, we find out that poor Rorschach has been manipulated. Even Byron Lewis, the Mothman, hid some of the files, parts of the files that showed that Rorschach's parents, the psychiatrists who treated the first Rorschach, um, that basically it destroyed him and ended up ruining their marriage. Whereas Rorschach had believed his parents were still together, still happy. It was all a lie. So poor Rorschach has been manipulated since the very beginning. And he's already crazy because of what Adrian had done with the whole squid monster. So then we cut back over to the riots that are going on. Not quite sure where they're at this point. They seem to be at Capitol Hill, but it's dark. I'm not sure if they transport them through time. And Adrian asked the question, why is John there? At first, I thought I might find a place among them, but then something happened. I looked forward. I saw a vision of the most hopeful among them heading toward me, now hopeless. And then I saw nothing. Now, if you read Watchmen, if you do this, you know that John experiences time simultaneously, and that's something that Adrian would do. That what he did to confuse him was mess with his perception of time, so he could not see things coming. Bubastis has even explained that can do that with part of John's power. So then we see what seems to be. I'm not quite sure what exactly is going on here. They're teleporting is killing people out here. So we cut into a couple people playing chess. They seem to be getting blown up again. And John explains that he's taking them to the Revival Theater in Hollywood, playing a midnight showing of The Adjournment. It's April 1954. I stand on the set and watch. And he's just kind of doing his babbling thing. But I was wrong, Adrian. Everything ends. Asks what it has to do with anything. And John just says, "We've talked enough." Looking very stern. He says goodbye and teleports them all back to the Joker and Batman. And Adrian says, "We need to call him back." But Rorschach's just lost it. And during this time, Mime and Marionette decide that they're going to walk off with the Green Lantern while Rorschach gets his revenge on Adrian. And Joker zaps Batman. And while Rorschach has given Adrian a beatdown, Joker tries to be funny. A little constructive criticism, if I may. And that's when Rorschach tells him, "Don't touch him." And Rorschach just beats the hell out of the Joker. And there's actually kind of a funny line, as he's beating him up. The Joker Blight says, "Did you enjoy it as much as I did?" And Rorschach paints a smile across his mask. And then when he says the whole dead thing, you think maybe he's talking about the Joker. No, Rorschach is dead. Because basically Rorschach, we find out that he's been manipulated and lied to so much. So Adrian, takes Bubastis and returns back to the owl ship, and uh, Saturn Girl says, "Wait, your thoughts, your mind, I can read it." "No, that's not supposed to happen. You can't." And Adrian, smacks the bitch up, and even takes down Johnny Thunder. Um, since John refuses a call, but now with the knowledge I have with Bubastis, I can save more than our world. I can save this one too. I can save everything and everybody. I have a plan. So, and we kind of do the fallout here where we're seeing more of the world going to hell, the mask, uh, Rorschach's mask on the ground. Um, and looks like Rorschach is mailing a letter to Lois Lane. I'm not quite sure how he knows who Lois Lane is, or if he just picked up on that she's a famous reporter. And so here we see more of the symbolism. I'm not really going to touch into um, the whole two people playing chess. Again, I think that's one of the things that's going to make more sense when you read the whole thing in trade. And then we have John back on Mars. He's in the middle of something. He has some plan going on. He talks about how in 1 month in the future, he sees Superman. He's yelling, "Devin by the thunder, the world is falling apart." His eye is burned with anger as he throws his fist forward. Then I see nothing. A year, a century, a millennium. Still nothing. I do not see tomorrow. And I wonder, 1 month from now, do I destroy everything? Does Superman destroy me? And the photograph that he had is still on the ground of Mars. So yeah, it's a little letter here where it talks about um, when Bubastis was killed by Dr. Manhattan in The Watchmen. Uh, he starts his company starts a fund to help endangered species, and throws all kinds of resources into it because of Bubastis. But we find it's actually a cover. These pages are actually pretty interesting. Um, it's a cover so he can get all the DNA so he can clone Bubastis, his only friend. And what we find is it keeps failing. So he starts trying to focus on the part of John's energy that was in the original Bubastis's ashes. And it talks about a very similar experience that they had when John became Dr. Manhattan, where a circulatory system was seen wandering through the building, and then a skeletal structure. And basically, every few months or whatever, you would get another piece of the creature as it was recreating itself, just the way John did when he became Dr. Manhattan. Um, but I'm kind of calling BS on that. Um, because you get the impression in the original Watchmen that the reason why John was able to do that when he had his accident was because he was a watchmaker, not just a nuclear physicist. That was something he did. He repaired watches. He knew how things were put together. That's why, you know, um, he was able to reconstruct himself, and that's what that whole period was he was rebuilding himself, kind of flipping through time. Um, it was more because of his intelligence, his way of, being a physicist, being a watchmaker. He knew how things worked. Um, Cloning a mutant cat, I'm not quite sure it would actually be able to do this because it's not. It would be reactive more instinctively, whereas, you got the impression that John was rebuilding himself. He was actually doing it himself. Um, he was actually putting forth the effort. Or maybe Bubastis is just that much smarter than we thought. And yeah, he explains more of how using the tachyons, just basically comic book science, that John will be drawn to her, and once she absorbs enough energy, that is. And Bubastis is going to help me save the world. And this time, I'll do anything so that she may live to see it. Oh, that's adorable. Anyway, it feels like this issue is finally going somewhere. Um, you know, Again, this probably will read really well in trade. It's plagued by the shipping. It's now like every 2 months. This really needs to be monthly. and because by the time the next issue comes out, you lose the nuance. And I'm not trying to say that Jeff Johns is Alan Moore. Don't get me wrong, but I have a feeling that this will really need to be collected, really need to be read that way. And the bi-monthly is killing this book. It really is killing the momentum. Um, but yeah, after Heroes in Crisis, this was a nice palate cleanser. I'm really interested now. We did need to see John. We had to have him finally kind of really enter the story and have these plots start to come together. And I skipped that page. I didn't mean to go back to it. And yeah, what this means for the Justice Society is we're starting. Hopefully, this will have them come back, and maybe we'll actually get the real Alan Scott. I actually kind of like the Earth 2 Alan Scott, the new 52 version, but yeah, if you're following, keep picking this up. This is good. I enjoyed this book. So, anyway, it's late, and I am going to go to bed. I got a big day tomorrow, so, alright. Once again, thanks for watching.